Hola mis amigos, me llamo Seamus, and in celebration of El Día del Niño, I would like to read a story from a book that I've had since I was a little Niño, called Good Night Stories. And I'll read the first story in this book, which might be my favorite for 3 reasons. 1, it's silly, and I love silly stories. 2, it involves using your imagination. And 3, it involves a bicycle riding around the world, the whole world. It's called Around the World in an Afternoon. Jonathan Spindle was tall and thin and very long. He had long legs, long arms, long feet, and a long nose. One day, when he had nothing else to do, he put some bread and cheese into a paper bag and said, "I shall walk around the world today." He pointed his long feet toward the door. "When you know where you're going but don't know how to get there, follow your nose," he said cheerfully. His nose led him to a strange-looking contraption propped against a signpost. "May I borrow your little iron horse?" he asked the signpost. About an iron horse. That's a bike, isn't it? Jonathan Spindle had just the right sort of legs for riding a bicycle that had no pedals. Long and thin and very strong. "When you know where you're going and you want to get there quicker, borrow an iron horse," he said. He's calling the bike an iron horse. Is so silly. He tied the paper bag holding his bread and cheese to the handlebars and got onto the contraption, which was really an iron hobby horse, a bike. His long feet pushed hard at the ground, and the iron wheels fairly whizzed along, bumpity, bumpity, bump. "I'm off to see the world," he sang, as he sped along the lane and into the wood. "This must be the great forest where the monkeys, the elephants, and the parrots live." "What a large animal an elephant is, to be sure," he gasped, as a little brown rabbit hopped along the road in front of him, jumpity, jumpity, jump. He watched the rabbit scurry down a burrow. "So," he said, with wonder in his voice, "elephants live under the ground in tunnels." The wood was only a small wood, and Jonathan's legs moved very fast as they scudded along the ground, scrapity, scrapity, scrape, flappity, flappity, flap. He was thinking about the elephant he thought he had seen, and he quite forgot to steer around the next corner he came to. Bumpity, bumpity, bump he went, right across a freshly plowed field. Oh no. "This must be the desert," said Jonathan, as mud splattered his boots and leggings. "I don't suppose it has rained here for years and years and years. I wonder if I'll see a camel." A tiny brown bird flew up from the furrow in front of him. "Upon my word, a flying camel!" shouted Jonathan Spindle. He craned his long neck and peered up into the sky so he could see the flying camel better, and ran straight into a hedge. The tangle of branches stopped the hobby horse, his bike, and he fell off with a bumpity, bumpity, bump. "What a prickly place the world is," he said as he pulled a thorn from his long nose. "I wish it would look where it's going. Hasn't it got a nose of its own to follow?" He decided that, as he was already sitting on the ground, he might as well eat his lunch. Where was the brown paper bag holding his bread and cheese? Well, it was high in the hedge, held there by the brambles and prickles. Whoa. Look at all this stuff. "I suppose hedges get hungry too," he said. "But it might have asked first. Please, fold up the bag and put it away tidily when you have finished eating," he called. So silly. He's talking to bushes. Jonathan remounted his little iron horse and carried on, following his long nose. It led him to a duck pond. "I see the sea! I see the sea!" he shouted. "I see the sea and 3 white sailing ships." Ships. This guy is so silly. And he splashed through the middle of the pond, splash, splash, splish, and set the ducks quacking and flapping. "How sweetly sailing ships can sing," he gasped. What a goof. When he had reached the far end of the pond, the iron horse was wet and dripping. Jonathan offered it a clump of grass. "Do not sulk," he said when the little iron horse refused to eat. "Our journey is nearly done." Jonathan's nose had led him in a circle and taken him back home. A long nose can always be relied upon to go in a circle if you follow it. He left the hobby horse under the signpost where he had found it and walked into his house. He was surprised to see it exactly as he'd left it. He was even more surprised that his cat hadn't grown a long white beard in his absence. "Meow," said the cat. "You've been away all afternoon. Where have you been?" All cats are inquisitive. "I've been around the world," said Jonathan, "and that always takes a long time." Well, what a silly story that is. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Maritza, for asking me to participate in El Dia del Niño. Peace.